Hi, this is Larry Tabb, founder and CEO of Tabb Group. I'm here with Kevin McPartland, senior analyst at Tabb Group, and the discussion today is around Senator Lincoln's proposed bill on derivatives, the agricultural bill on derivatives. And to a certain extent, there's a significant issue within the ag bill that talks about basically limiting banks' ability to play in the derivatives market. Kevin, why don't you kind of explain what the issue is and the proposal?
Sure. So what the language actually says is that any banks who are in the derivatives business, who are dealers in the derivatives markets, would ultimately not have access to the FDIC, to the Fed, to other support mechanisms that banks are generally used to. So what that effectively means is the major banks, the major dealers would have to spin off their swaps desk.
So what does that mean? Is that really practical? Do we really think that the banks can spin this off? And what's the issue here?
Well, there's a number of reasons, I think, generally why it's not practical. What seems to be going on here is they're trying to get some semblance of Glass-Steagall stuck back in this financial reform bill, a little bit undercover. One of the big issues would be capital requirements. Derivatives dealing and market making, which is an essential function, it requires a tremendous amount of capital. Even if we look at new clearing initiatives, which is a huge part of this bill, ICE Trust US, for example, requires members to have $5 billion in excess capital. So what happens if they're no longer with these big banks? Are they going to be able to meet those requirements?
So I guess the issue is, if they spin these derivative businesses off, then where are these spun-off businesses going to get their capital from? So they're going to really need to be public. They're going to need to almost be at least a AA, onto a AAA. And they're not going to have guaranteed deposits. They're not going to have access to the discount window. So to a certain extent, what they're really doing is, basically killing the market-making facilities of the OTC swap business. Now, is this OTC, just OTC, or is this going to be, because there's a significant pressure within the new ag bill to push a lot of these transactions onto exchange? Will they still be allowed to be banks and make markets on the exchange, or is this just the OTC side of that?
Well, that's a good question. I think you're right. Some of the standard products will become more electronically traded, will be centrally cleared. And when we talk about capital requirements, usually the conversation says that anything that is then cleared will not sort of hurt against your capital requirements. That'll be a good thing. But it's not realistic to think that these banks could deal in only certain standard swaps and not in other non-standard swaps. And it's possible, it's even possible that swaps that are now standard could become non-standard as they go off the run, for example, a few years down the line. So it would get too complicated. It really needs to be one entity, sort of one supporting the other. Now, this isn't too far-fetched, right? The banks have separate legal entities for their futures business with their FCMs. They have separate legal entities for their broker-dealer business. So if this was a similar structure where it was still sort of under the bank's umbrella, maybe that would work, rather than completely spinning it off separately. But it's unclear from the language exactly what that means.
So I guess the one thing that we can really look forward to is there's going to be significant pressure to really ring-fence the derivatives business from the traditional banking business, and whether it's going to be able to be done in the same holding company, whether it's going to be separate holding companies, or they're going to be separate, totally spun-off entities, is still kind of up in the air, up for negotiation in D.C. Eh?
Yeah, I mean the broad issues, were already that are set forth now that are pretty likely to go through. I think would have already solved a lot of these concerns: reporting, more transparency into trading, central clearing, registration by major participants, whether major swap participants or dealers. That's going to deal with a lot of these transparency and systemic risk issues. We don't need to sort of take it to this next level and really disrupt the market.
Now, on getting back to the Lincoln bill, there's been a lot of notoriety, basically a lot of media attention, basically saying that all OTC swaps will be traded on exchange. Is it really that black and white, that all OTC swaps, or is there still a carve out for corporate oriented swaps where I'm trying to some manufacturing company trying to insulate myself from a currency or from a credit, and I can do a bespoke swap?
Yeah, no, well, there's a few issues there. You're right. So the vast majority of the OTC derivative market would not be suitable for clearing, and the trading requirements are based on what is required to be cleared. So that already leaves a huge, huge portion of the market that's not standard or liquid enough to move on to electronic platform.
And the Lincoln bill doesn't really, affect that, because so some of the media attention is kind of been misguided here.
Well, I think what the media is focused on is for those products that are able to be.
So there's still this discussion between liquid versus non-liquid products and OTC versus exchange. So even under the Lincoln bill, it's not as extreme as what was being initially proposed, that all OTC swaps will have to move on exchange.
No, I mean that's definitely. I think what the Lincoln bill is trying to make sure is that more people have to follow these mandates. So the end users, the big hedge funds that are players in this market, that they all have to trade those products on exchange. Whereas under it's more likely, I would say, under the House bill or the Dodd bill, that there'd be more end user exemptions for big corporations, for non-systemically important hedge funds, for example. To me, that's more realistic. The whole point of financial reform is to reduce systemic risk. It's not to recraft the derivatives market, it's to reduce systemic risk. So we need the tools in place to do that, and I think Senator Lincoln may have taken it a little too far.
Okay. With that, I think we'll cut it off for now. I'm Larry Tabb, founder and CEO of Tabb Group. I'm here again with Kevin McPartland, senior analyst at Tabb Group. And until next time, thanks.